I never thought I'd be the guy telling this story, but here I am. Maybe it's a warning, maybe just a confession, but either way, I need to get it out. It's about how I found out my wife cheated on me the night before our wedding, and it changed everything. We'd been together for 3 years. We were supposed to get married in a week. I remember the night before, I was so damn excited. I'd been packing all day, trying to get everything ready. She was supposed to come over to help me, but she said she was busy at work. Instead, I stayed in a hotel room downtown, thinking I was just going to finish packing alone, maybe have a few drinks, and then wake up ready to marry her. That night I was hammered. It was a long week and I was pretty damn tired. I ordered a couple of beers from the minibar, then kept drinking. I remember the room was dim, the city noise outside faint. I was just thinking about the morning, picturing us tying the knot. I was so drunk, everything felt light and distant, like I was floating. I drifted off. And I woke up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling. My head was foggy, but I remember hearing noises from the other side of the hotel door. I thought maybe someone was checking in late or some staff. I didn't get up right away. I just lay there, eyes half closed, listening. Then I heard voices. Low, muffled, but unmistakably familiar. The kind of voice that made my stomach tight. I sat up, my heart pounding. I could hear laughter, a shuffling sound. Someone was definitely in the room next door. My mind spun. I wondered who it could be. I kept listening, trying to make out what they were saying. I remember feeling like my skin was crawling. Then I heard a soft moan, sharp and unmistakable. That's when my stomach dropped. I knew exactly who it was, my wife. The one I was supposed to marry in 6 hours. Her voice, her laugh, so familiar, so intimate. I clenched my fists until my knuckles went white. I couldn't believe it. My mind refused to accept it at first. I rolled closer to the door, pressing my ear against the thin wood. I could hear her voice whispering things I won't repeat. The guy's voice was deeper, calmer, but equally familiar. It hit me hard. This was my best man, my closest friend, the guy I trusted more than anyone. I felt my mind spiral. How the hell did this happen? The night we were supposed to start our life together, she was with him. I tried to breathe, tried to process. I fought the urge to scream, to confront them right then. Instead, I stayed frozen, listening as they moved around, as the night slipped away. When they finally quieted down, I slowly backed away from the door. I stayed in that room, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece it all together. I felt hollow. The worst part, I wasn't sure how I'd ever look at either of them again. How do you come back from that? How do you even pretend once the truth is out? The next morning, I woke up in a daze. My head was pounding, my stomach in knots. I looked at my phone, saw the messages, dozens of them. Flirty, intimate, explicit. I couldn't believe what I was reading. All the pieces fit now. She'd been cheating on me right under my nose with my best man. The one person I trusted the most, the one I'd even defended when people said they weren't right for each other. I felt rage bubble up. How could I have been so blind? All those signs, she was distant, secretive. The late nights, the unexplained absences. I ignored them because I loved her. And now I was left with a sinking feeling that I'd been played. Played while I was drunk, vulnerable, and unaware. I knew I couldn't do nothing. I had to plan my revenge. I had to make them pay, both of them, for tearing my life apart. But first I had to get out of that hotel, gather myself. I reached for my keys, my hands trembling. As I looked at the messages again, I knew this wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was war, and I was ready to fight. I left the hotel room that morning feeling like I was walking through a fog. My mind was racing so fast I could barely keep up. Every breath felt shallow, like I'd forgotten how to breathe properly. I kept replaying the night before, hearing her voice, hearing the guy's voice, feeling the betrayal like a knife twisting in my gut. But what stuck out even more was the raw, burning need to make them regret it, to make them pay. I didn't have a master plan yet, just a flood of rage and a sense of clarity that I wouldn't let this slide. I couldn't. Not after what they did. I'd trusted her with everything, my future, my best friend, my heart. And they'd thrown it all away in a single night. First thing I did was find my car. The drive home was the longest of my life. The city was awakening around me, but I felt numb. My hands tightened on the steering wheel and I could feel my palms slick with sweat. Every little bump in the road felt like a punch to my chest. I was trying to think, trying to figure out what to do next, but all I could see was her face, her laugh, the way I'd believed she was the one. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I took a deep breath. The house looked normal, silent, waiting for me to come back in. Pretend everything was fine, but I knew better. Nothing was fine anymore. Still, I had to act like I was in control. I couldn't let them see my pain, not yet. I went straight to my computer, pulled up her phone number and then my best man. I stared at the screen, thinking about what I wanted to say, what I needed them to hear. But the truth was, I didn't want words. I wanted something else. Something that would hit harder. I spent the next hour carefully collecting evidence. Screenshots of their messages, copies of the photos they'd sent each other, everything I could find. I wanted proof so I could make sure they knew I wasn't just angry, I was calculated. I wanted them to see I had this all mapped out. I knew I couldn't just confront them on a whim. Not yet. I had to be smart. I needed to make sure they felt the weight of what they'd done without knowing I was watching. That's when I decided I'd set a trap. I'd invite him over, pretend I was still trying to patch things up, get him to slip up again. The proof I needed was right there, I just had to make him give it to me. My stomach clenched as I imagined the moment. I'd be waiting, calm but deadly, ready to snatch the final piece of the puzzle. I didn't want to just yell and scream. I wanted to see his face crumble, wanted her to realize I knew everything from the start. First, I sent her a message. I kept it simple, cold, direct. "We need to talk, now." I knew she'd panic, but I didn't care. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in. After all, she'd been the one to break the trust, not me. Then I reached out to him with a message I'd crafted carefully. "Can you come by? I need to talk about last night." I didn't add any more. I knew he'd take the bait, he always did. He was reckless, overconfident. That was my advantage. When he arrived, I played it cool. I kept my face neutral, voice steady. "Thanks for coming," I said. "There's something I need to get off my chest." I watched him closely, waiting for the first sign of guilt, of panic. As I started to speak, I saw him shift uncomfortably. That's when I pulled out the evidence. The messages, the photos, everything. His face went pale. "You're kidding," he stammered. "This isn't what it looks like." "Oh no," I said softly. "I think it's exactly what it looks like. I let the files speak for me. I've got proof you two were sneaking around last night, while I was drunk in that hotel, thinking I was just helping her pack." He looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Good. That's exactly what I wanted." His excuses, his denial, they all fell apart in that moment. And her, she was just watching, eyes wide, knowing she'd been caught. I felt my fists tight. I'd done what I needed to do. Now it was just a matter of waiting for her to confront her own lies. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let this slide. They had to see that their betrayal had consequences, and I was about to give it to them. The moment I laid out everything, the messages, the photos, the screenshots, I watched their faces change. Her eyes widened in shock, but I could see the guilt creeping in behind her gaze. His jaw clenched, and I saw the instant realization that I had them dead to rights. I didn't need to say much more. The evidence spoke volumes. "I don't know what you think this is," I said, voice steady but cold. "But I'm done. Done pretending, done trusting either of you." I stepped closer, feeling the adrenaline surge through my veins. "You thought I was too drunk to notice, huh? Thought I wouldn't find out. Well, I did. And now I get to decide what happens next." They both looked like they'd been hit by a freight train. She stammered, trying to justify herself, but I cut her off. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses. I've been played for a fool, and I'm tired of being the one who gets hurt while you two screw around behind my back." I took a breath, then laid out my plan. "This isn't just about anger. It's about making sure you both understand what you've lost. So here's what's going to happen. I'm giving him a chance to leave, and I'll be watching. If I catch him near her again, it won't be pretty. And her, she can choose me or them, but I'm not sticking around to be the backup for someone's midnight fling." They tried to protest. I saw her mouth open, probably to apologize or plead, but I raised my hand. "No, I've heard enough. I'll be taking some time to think. But once I do, I'll be making sure everyone knows what you've done. I'm not a fool anymore, trust me." As they sat there, stunned, I turned away. I needed to get out of that room, out of that house, and away from the mess I'd created. I knew I could end it all right now, walk out, change the locks, block her number. But I wanted to make sure she'd realize the gravity of her actions. So I drafted a plan. I was going to make her believe I'd left her, that I was walking away for good. I'd leave the house, but only to watch her reaction. If she still tried to reach me, I'd be there, lurking like a ghost he couldn't shake. I was done with hiding. I wanted her to see what I was capable of when pushed. Later. That day I went out and bought a few things. A burner phone, a new SIM card, some fake IDs. I didn't want her knowing where I was, not yet. I had to be careful. This was just the beginning. I'd make sure they both felt the weight of what they'd done. I'd craft a perfect storm, one that would leave no room for doubt. I was done playing the fool. The plan was simple. I'd pretend to disappear, but I'd be watching. I'd send a few subtle messages, let her believe I was moving on. Meanwhile, I'd gather even more proof, get ready for the moment I'd confront them again with everything laid out. No more hiding, no more pretending. They'd see what true revenge looked like. That night I sat alone at my computer reviewing everything. My mind was racing, every detail sharp as a knife. I knew I was serious now. This wasn't just about heartbreak. This was about making them understand what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away. I was ready. I could almost feel the cold, sharp satisfaction of the moment. I'd finally make them feel small. All I needed was time and patience. Plenty of it. They thought they'd gotten away, but I was just getting started. I'd make sure they paid every last price for their betrayal. This was war, and I was about to wage it on my own terms. For the next few days, I kept my distance. My plan was in motion, and I had to play it cool. I told myself I'd be patient, but inside, every second felt like a countdown. I'd laid the groundwork. Now all I needed was to see their reactions. That meant I had to be silent, watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment. I kept her on a short leash, texting just enough to keep her guessing, pretending I was still confused, hurt, maybe even considering reconciliation. Meanwhile, I was doing the opposite. I was digging deeper, finding little things she overlooked or dismissed, little clues that told me she hadn't learned her lesson, that she still didn't understand the damage she'd done. Her messages still popped up on my burner phone, things she thought I couldn't see. She kept trying to justify herself, saying she was drunk, that it was a mistake. I rolled my eyes every time I read her excuses. That wasn't just a mistake, that was betrayal on a scale I'd never imagined. I also reached out to a few people I trusted, mutual friends, people who knew her, who could confirm what kind of person she really was. I didn't want to burn her publicly just yet. I wanted her to realize I wasn't bluffing. I was collecting ammunition, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One afternoon, I received an unexpected message from her. Just a simple, "Can we talk?" I knew what that meant. She was trying to fix things, or at least get me to listen. I didn't reply right away. I needed her to sweat a little more, to feel that I disappeared, that I was gone, but I also needed to bait her further. So I made it seem like I was softening, that maybe I was willing to hear her out. I sent her a message that read, "I'm not sure I can do this, but I'm willing to listen. Meet me at the park in an hour." I wanted her to think I was giving her a chance. That's when I'd be ready. When she showed up, her face was pale, eyes glassy. She looked like she'd been crying good. That was exactly what I wanted. I played it cool, leaning against the bench, watching her approach. I didn't speak yet. I wanted her to fill the silence, to feel how much I'd been holding back. "You wanted to talk," I finally said, voice rough but controlled. "Well, I've got a lot to say, and I hope you're ready to hear it." She looked down, then back up. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen." "Sorry," I cut her off, my voice cold. "Sorry doesn't cut it. You cheated with my best man. While I was drunk in that hotel room, thinking I was just helping you pack. Do you even realize how much you've destroyed, how much you've broken me?" Her eyes welled up, but I didn't care. I was just getting started. "I've got proof. Every message, every photo, everything. I've been collecting it because I knew you screw up. You thought I was blind. You thought I wouldn't find out." She looked like she wanted to say something, but I raised my hand. "Save it. I've made my decision. I've got a plan to make. Sure, you never forget what you did. And trust me, I'm not the kind of guy who just walks away." I told her about the revenge, how I was going to end this once and for all, how I'd make sure she paid for her betrayal, how I'd make her regret ever crossing me. I wasn't going to yell or scream. I wanted her to understand that I was serious. This wasn't some passing rage. This was a calculated move, a message that she'd lost everything. I saw her trembling, but I pushed on. You should start packing your things, because once I'm done, there's no coming back from this. I'm done being the fool, the sucker. I'm done giving second chances, and I promise you, you won't like the ending. She looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew I meant every word. I turned around, slowly walking away from her, feeling the weight of my decision settle into my bones. I'd done what I could. Now I just had to wait for her to realize what she'd lost. Back at home, I started preparing. I'd set up a few more things, little surprises that would remind her that I was always watching. I'd made my move, and now I was ready to execute the next phase. The game was on, and I was playing for keeps. The days that followed felt like a slow burn, each one dragging longer than the last. I kept her guessing, dropping subtle hints that I was still very much in control. I didn't reply to every message, but I made sure she knew I was watching. Every move she made, I saw it. Every word she typed, I knew it. That sense of control was intoxicating and terrifying for her. Meanwhile, I was finalizing my revenge plan. I'd been gathering every bit of evidence, but I needed to make it all count. I wanted her to feel the full weight of betrayal, and I wanted her to understand that I wasn't somebody to mess with. I stayed calm on the surface, but inside I was boiling with determination. One evening, I decided it was time to escalate. I arranged a meeting, a private space where I could execute the final stage. I sent her a message. Come to the usual place. We need to talk. No more hiding. No details, just enough to get her there. I wanted her nervous, on edge, unsure of what I'd do once she walked into that room. I set everything up early that night. I cleared out the space, made sure no one could see what I was doing. I wanted to feel the power, to see her face when she finally understood the scope of my plans. When she arrived, she looked like she'd been crying again, eyes puffy, trembling lips, perfect. I greeted her with a cold smile. Glad you could make it, I said, voice low, almost a whisper. We need to talk, really talk this time. I didn't let her speak first. I wanted her to hear me out, to understand that I'd gone far beyond just being hurt. I pulled out my phone, showing her the collection of evidence I'd been putting together. It was a stark reminder of how deep her betrayal went. Look at this, I said, scrolling through the messages. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You thought you could hide this forever, that I wouldn't find out. Well, surprise, your secret's out. Her face went pale. She tried to reach for the phone, but I held it just out of reach. No, I said, this isn't about forgiveness anymore. It's about consequences. You lied, cheated, and played me for a fool, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. I explained how I was going to release the evidence online, how I'd send it to our friends, our families, even her work. I'd make sure her reputation was shredded. She begged me to stop, tears streaming down her face, but I wasn't listening. I was too focused on how much power I'd gained, power she'd underestimated from the start. You thought you could get away with this, I said, voice rising just enough to show I wasn't bluffing. But I don't forget, I don't forgive. And I sure as hell don't move on, so you've got two choices. Keep pretending you're sorry or face the fallout. Either way, I'm done with you. She broke down completely then, sobbing, begging me to forgive her. But I had already made up my mind. She'd lost me, her partner, her trust. I was done being the sucker, the fool who took her back after this. I handed her a small bag with her things. Here, I said coldly, take your stuff and go, don't come back, not ever. I watched her stumble out of the place, shoulders hunched, tears blurring her vision. That moment I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, relief mixed with a weird sense of victory. Once she was gone, I sat in silence, staring out at the night. My mind was clear now. She'd betrayed me, yes, but I had turned the tables. She'd be remembered as the one who threw everything away, not me. And I knew I'd never let anyone do that to me again. Looking back, I realized what this taught me. Sometimes the only way to heal is to take control of the situation, even if it means cutting out what's toxic. I may have lost her, but I gained my dignity back, and that's worth more than any apology she could have given. If you're ever betrayed like this, remember, revenge isn't about violence or destruction. It's about reclaiming your power, showing them they can't walk all over you. And most importantly, never let someone else's betrayal define your worth. After I kicked her out, I felt a strange mix of emptiness and relief. The house was suddenly too quiet, like the walls knew I'd lost something, someone who I thought was part of my future. But beneath that, there was a flicker of something else, power. I'd finally taken control, turned the tables, and made damn sure she understood that she'd crossed a line I wouldn't tolerate. I stayed up all night, watching the evidence I'd amassed go live. I sent the links to friends, to her family, to everyone who needed to see what she'd done. The fallout was swift. Mutual friends messaged me, shocked but supportive. Her boss called her in for an urgent meeting. By morning, the entire story was out and her reputation was in free fall. That was exactly what I wanted. In the aftermath, I felt a strange sense of closure. The pain, the betrayal, it all hurt like hell, but I had turned it into my victory. I knew she'd regret what she'd done, but I also knew I'd move on. That's what revenge is about, taking your pain and transforming it into something that reclaims your dignity. I did one last thing. I went to her apartment, knocked on the door, and handed over the keys. "You can't come back," I told her, voice firm, "and this is the end of our story." I watched her stare at me, eyes red, defeated. Then I turned around and walked away, feeling oddly lighter, like I'd finally broken free from a terrible chapter. Now, looking back, I see it clearly. The betrayal was a brutal wound, but it taught me a lot about myself, about resilience, about what it means to stand up when everything's falling apart. I don't regret what I did. I don't regret standing my ground or fighting for my dignity. To anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation, here's my advice: trust your gut. When the signs are there, don't ignore them. Confront the problem head on, but do it smartly, with purpose. Revenge isn't about petty payback. It's about reclaiming your power and making sure they understand you're not someone to mess with. Most of all, don't forget, the pain eases, but the lessons stay with you. Keep your heart open, but keep your boundaries tighter. Because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness is you. And no betrayal can take that away if you refuse to let it.